Yes. So I think the number one important thing that I wanted to touch on quickly is personal growth and development is key and huge to not only product development, what I do, but if you are listening to anything, whatever business you're going to do, whatever new job you're looking for, personal growth and development is key. I am not the same person I was when I started with my first idea. I had to grow. And then this takes us into these other ideas here, right? You have to be open to growing and learning from other people. And then, of course, a belief mindset, because it is very hard, I personally feel, to succeed if you are down all the time and you don't believe in yourself. And so if you are open to learn and open to grow personally, not just your business, because I will tell you, the more I put in my time on myself to grow personally, my business grows. I do better. I sign more deals when I am putting time into me and my personal growth development, not just my product development. And I would assume or think that would be like any business person. The more you're working on yourself and growing, whether it's communication skills or ideation, or, me like learning how to take time apart and practice meditation and calmness, or learning how to believe in yourself, which may start with simple I am statements and writing them 10 times a day, of what you are, so that you can work on believing in yourself.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. With me today is an amazing guest who is going to take us into the world of inventing and the leadership journey that she's been on to get to that point. Her name is April Mitchell. April, are you ready for kickoff?
I am. I'm so excited.
I am too. This has been a long time coming. So team, here are just a few things about April. She's going to fill in the gaps for us, but she calls herself a professional problem solver. She's a creative thinker, an idea machine, a magic maker, a dreamer, and a what-ifer, which all of those I absolutely love about you, April. Also known as an inventor, right? So Here she is. She specializes in designing toys and games, party and houseware, things that go into that particular industry. I'm sure she has some thoughts about programs like Shark Tank. She was just at the New York Toy Fair, which is a huge event at the Javits Center in Manhattan. And she's going to tell us about that. Her background is in teaching, which is such a great background for being an inventor, I think. And you live in Minnesota, is that right?
North Carolina. So I'm from Wisconsin. Maybe that's why. You're thinking Midwest. She's from Midwest, but we live in North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay. And you have how many children? I know you have several.
Yes, we have 4.
Right.
They're all teenagers currently, between 18 and 13. So we're having fun in our house.
Absolutely. And so let's just get going with you giving us that 360-degree view of your call to leadership, April, that has led you to what you're doing today. How old were you when you realized I'm being called to do something bigger than myself, which is how I define leadership? That's one part of it. And what was going on in your life at the time that perhaps was a catalyst for you to step up and say, I'm leading?
Great question. So I feel like I'm a little all over the place with that answer. I think growing up, I was always thought of as a leader in the sense of, captains on the sports teams and things like that. And like to think a little bit differently and go against the grain sometimes. I didn't want to just do things because other people were doing them. But I would say what really led me into leading in the inventor space was, I had some ideas of my own. I had some problems that needed to be fixed. And I couldn't find solutions to them out on the market. And so I thought, well, if these solutions don't exist, then I'm going to create them. Like I'm going to fix this problem myself. And hopefully someone will want the product because they might have the same problem that I do. At the time, I was struggling strongly with depression and anxiety. And I had just had our fourth child, and my husband was away. He's in the he was in the military. He's since retired, but he was on a deployment. And so it was a lot of hardships, being a single mom at the time, or feeling like a single mom at the time, raising all the kids and just feeling a little overwhelmed. And when I realized I needed something more for me, I needed to do something that I enjoyed, a passion, a dream, something like that. That really kind of helped me come out of that. That was one of the things that really helped with that situation. And I will say, as I had so much to learn myself because I didn't know where to start, as I was learning, I thought, well, this information could be helpful for other people down the road. So once I got far enough in my journey where I licensed a couple products, I felt like I should share what I'm learning and it will help others because other people help me, right? I didn't do it all on my own. I learned from others. I developed personally, as well as helped myself develop with product development. So I thought, well, I want to give back. People gave to me and I want to help. So kind of to keep that domino effect going.
Yes. Oh, I love that truly servant leadership piece to you, where it wasn't just about you and your success. It was really, now can I turn this around and pay it forward to others? What was your first product that you licensed?
Yes. So my first product that I licensed, it never made it to the retail space, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I have hopes. It is patented, but I do have hopes that one day it will make it. So I'm not going to mention it, though I know it's been mentioned years ago before. But my first product, or my second product that got licensed, and the first product that made it to the retail spaces was the product called the Right Height Adjustable Over the Door Hook. So that was my first product that actually made it online and in stores and to the retail space. So I felt like, wow, this is a huge, it was very big for me of accomplishment because the first one didn't make it. And I really, I struggled with that a little bit. And I thought, okay, the second one, it has to, I'm determined. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to turn over every rock. I'm going to, make sure something happens with that. And then once I licensed that, or was in the process of licensing, because it took a bit of time, then I started into the toy and game industry, like started creating products there. And I thought, because I was already making games and learning tools and things like that in my classroom as a teacher, and then once I had kids, I started doing it for my own kids. I thought, well, why, if I can do this in the housewares industry, I've got to be able to do it in the toy and game industry too. And so then I started taking things we were doing as a family already and started working on those projects in the toy and game industry. But there's a lot of similarities of how the process is, but the housewares and toy and game industry are so different.
Sure.
As well. So I had a lot to learn. It wasn't just, I licensed my over the door hook. Now I know everything. No. and I still don't. And I never will. Right. Because I think if we ever feel like we do, then we're in trouble. And, you shouldn't feel like you know everything you need to know. So that the housewares product led to the toy and game industry also because of my background and my kids. And I thought, well, let's keep this going. And now I feel like that's the space I really, really enjoy because I do it with my family. I do it a lot with my family. They're a big part of it. And I still invent in the toy industry, and I have something in the pets and in fishing that I'm working on as well and whatnot. And I do novelty and party. But with the with the toy and game industry, I invent a lot with my family. They help with prototypes and play testing, and they're in the videos. And I also work with other game designers and co-design games or co-invent games as well. And even then, most of the time, my family will still play test and be in videos and things like that. So they're a large part of what I do, which makes it even more fun.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that. And I imagine there are many listeners who know very little about being an inventor, being a toy and game designer. And I also know from having conversations just out and about that people have ideas, right? So take us, we were talking in the pre-chat a little bit about what all of us see typically is at the end of the process. Either it's on the retail shelf at a place like Target or Walmart or even on Amazon, right? Some kind of retail space. But you were saying that one of the things that you're doing now is you're documenting the life, really the minutia of what it means to be a toy and game designer and inventor. So take us, for the average person who really knows very little, maybe they've watched Shark Tank over the years and they've seen people pitching products, but what really happens in the life of an inventor like yourself, April, who's had success?
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. So, like you mentioned, I'm doing the series, The Documented Life of an Inventor, to capture the ups and downs in the daily and the weekly, because like you mentioned, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, people see she signed another contract, or she has a new product out, or she's up for an award. They see all the fun, exciting things that we love to share with people, and we appreciate everyone's support. But what they don't see is when I started out, how I was nervous to make a phone call and I'm sitting in front of my computer with my information in my phone. They don't see that. They see April does videos and she talks with everyone and she's totally outgoing, but they don't see how the steps to get there. So in the series that I'm doing, I'm talking about the difficult times, the receiving the no's, or working on the prototypes, or preparing for the pitch, all of those things. So typically, just to give a little overview is, let's just say I have an idea for a game, whether it's a theme or I have a name and then I have to come up with the game mechanics and how to play, or whether I start with, I've got this great idea for a mashup for game mechanics, and then I go from there and then I theme it. But whatever way I start out, I have to have a prototype. I need to have a prototype and I need to play test it. And most oftentimes, I will say 95% of the time, when you play test a game, it is going to change. It's going to get better. It's like editing a paper, right? You wouldn't turn in a paper to your professor as a rough draft. So when you play test games, it gets better. You make sure the directions are clearer. And after so much play testing, once I decide, okay, this game is ready, then we'll shoot. Maybe sometimes I'll make a better prototype, more pleasing to the eye, and sometimes not, depending on where it is. And then I'll shoot some videos of it, short clips of different parts of the game, and show how fun it is. And then I piece those short clips together and I make what we call a sizzle video. And once I have that sizzle video ready, then I request to meet with game companies. And usually I will try to have a few new games ready to show them before I meet with them. I want to be thoughtful of their time. And so if we're going to meet for 25 minutes, I want to make sure that I've got enough to fill that time with them. So I will show them the video. And sometimes I might have a sell sheet or a few page pitch deck, which goes through the steps in the game, but where you can pause and slowly talk about them, because sizzle videos are exciting and they kind of move fast and whatnot. So I may have a pitch video or a pitch deck as well. And then I will present it to as many companies as I know. And then I'm always adding to my list of companies. And that's where trade shows are great, because when you walk trade shows, and we could talk about this in a little bit, you can meet new companies and then have more companies on your list to present to that you feel that the game will fit with. So it's important that I do my research and say, hey, this company is currently selling family games. And the games I have are family games, or they are selling learning games. And so that way I'm presenting to them things that they actually could license or that could fit into their product line. We don't want to pitch a preschooler game to a company that only makes party games. That would not be good. And they might not take your call or your email next time. This person doesn't know what we do. So we want to make sure we are professional as inventors and understand the companies that we are reaching out to, that we present to them things that could actually be a fit for them. And then after pitching, what happens usually is, or what we hope happens, is a few companies will want a sample to play test, and then send out that sample, and hopefully they love it, and then they license it. And then when they license it, they are manufacturing it and selling it in the retail spaces because they have those relationships and that's what they do well. And then I'm sitting over here collecting a royalty check quarterly off of the wholesale cost of each of the products. And so that's just kind of a little overview of, from idea to selling the product.
Yeah. No, it's so good to hear. First of all, the commitment that you have to make to the process. It's not like it's different. Like you said, writing a paper, writing a book, that's my world. It's you have an idea, and from the time the idea it comes up to the time the book is available for people to sell, there's a whole lot that goes on in between, including revision, including getting feedback, including, hey, would you take a look at, how do you like the feel of these game pieces, for example, or did this flow for you? I mean, there's all that process. And for people who, this is, you're doing this on LinkedIn, correct? They could follow you on LinkedIn and see this documented life of an inventor, yes?
Correct. Yes, they can.
Good.
And then I also have a YouTube channel that I've started putting it on as well.
Great. And so, team, I'll have links to these resources from April, because if you or someone you know is curious about the inventing life and maybe has some ideas, I can't think of a better resource for you than April. Seriously, this woman, I will do a little disclosure here. I think it was in 2022, you and your very good friend and co-inventor, Ed Garden, did your first course for people like me who interested in have ideas for games. And it was such a great course. I got so much out of it. I met some wonderful other cohort folks who I'm connected with on LinkedIn, and it's fun to see what they're doing.
Sure.
But the thing is that you really are committed to continuous learning, which I think is a mark of a great leader. You are obviously giving back so much to the community, and you're building a wonderful community of people who either are wanting to learn from you and the process from idea to product and then getting it licensed. In general, what percentage would you say of pitches, inventors usually don't have just one idea, right? Although sometimes that there is the one idea that catches fire, and that really sets a person up for life. I mean, there are those, I call them the lottery winners, right? We've read about them. And I know someone that you have worked closely with, Stephen Key, his book, One Simple Idea, which is on my bookshelf. It's also a great book. Sometimes it just takes that one simple idea to bring you into a new existence. But again, averages, April, you have a bird's eye view of the industry. You know what happens. I guess I have two parts to this question. What is the percentage of products that you pitch that end up getting licensed? And then are companies genuinely looking for people like you, me, and listeners to bring new ideas to them?
Yes, good question. So the percent, let me just say, I have always told I shouldn't do math in public. That's kind of like a rule in our household. Don't math in public. Don't math in public. We joke about. So I don't know, but I can tell you that, I've had hundreds of ideas, but I don't work on all of them, right? You have to choose what you work on. And I I've licensed over a dozen. I have the list on my wall over here. It's like I've licensed over a dozen, and I'm currently in negotiations with a couple more. So I don't know how many I've actually pitched, but what I will say, it's not a large percentage. Like, it takes time, it takes grit, and I find, especially when I was coaching new inventors, that the majority of people give up too soon.
Oh,
And
okay.
I say that because I've licensed products with the first person that's seen them. I've licensed products that have taken 2.5 years. And
Wow.
sometimes I might put it on the back burner, and then all of a sudden I find the perfect fit company, and now it's licensed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I've licensed products that had needed 3 theme changes. The game at the core was loved, but people didn't care for the theme, and it took the 3rd theme to license that game. So feedback is super important, and not giving up is super important, and knowing when to kind of put it on the back burner, like I like to say, work on other things and then retry it again is really important. And I think that if more people did those things, they would have more successes like I do. I don't give up easily. I'm a fighter and I'm a determined woman. And I think if more people started having a mindset of not giving up, keep going when you believe in something, that they too could have better outcomes. So I don't know my percentage, but I've been told by other inventors that it's kind of higher than usual that they know of, but it's hard to know.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
I don't know exactly what other people are doing or how long they've been doing it and things like that. So I don't know that percentage, unfortunately. I'm sorry, but I feel like it's definitely something that you have to work at. And I think it's one of those things, like, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
And it's a muscle, right? That we have to keep, building and and strengthening, and then keep going at it. And I think too, if you stay in an industry long enough, you really get to know the people. You're building relationships. They're rooting for you and fighting for you just as much as you want to win. They want a win with you, right?
Sure.
I think that's really important as well. But like you said, some people will start with one idea. I started with one idea. I didn't know I had more. And like, oh, then another one came. And then another one. And then I started learning that, wow, I can actually brainstorm and I can be inspired and I can actually just whip out a dozen starts of ideas, right? I don't have everything hashed out, but you can just whip out a bunch of them in a few minutes and then look at them again and say, what has legs here? Like, what may be something to look into further? So I don't know. I might have answered one of your questions. Sometimes I get in the weeds, but I don't know if I answered both of them.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
The takeaways for me is persistence and being a fighter, believing in your idea, recognizing that it's not necessarily going to be instant. Also, that feedback is such an important piece of the evolution of a product. Could you explain the concept of theme as it relates to games for people to just, give a, for instance, a couple of common, familiar games and then what the theme would be for people? Again, I'm hoping that this is inspiring some listeners to whatever ideas they have for anything. It could be a new business, not necessarily a game, but just in general. Right. I think that idea of theme is so powerful.
Right. And I agree. I think theme really pulls you in and helps you with your experience. So it's like when you have the aesthetics, the art and a theme all intertwined, people get the feel of the game. So they may like the game and think, oh, this is good. But if they were immersed in a theme and really felt connected, or like they were experienced, or in a like on a forbidden island, or if they were in New York City, or wherever they feel, the theme of the game can take them, then they I feel like have a better experience and a more enjoyable experience. So, I mean, a game that I think everyone in the in the world knows is Monopoly, right? You just
Right.
regular Monopoly, and then they've got all the themes possible that you could think of in, Mario Brothers and Disney ones, and just all these different themes. And so if you are really into a certain theme, it's going to be more exciting to play that game. Now, I will say, and like we taught Mary Lou in the course, it's not necessarily something new if you are just taking a game, like let's just say you have Sorry and you enjoy this game Sorry, but you're like, let's make it Space Sorry. Like that oftentimes isn't enough for the company to say, yes, let's pay you for this idea, right? Maybe you change other things and you make it interactive and there's more to it, then maybe. But just changing a theme on a game that already exists isn't always enough for an outside inventor to come to the table with. But their in-house design team could do that. And then they have the same game with different themes and they sell tons of it. But for us as outside inventors, that they do need, and this goes back to your other question, I remember now, is how do they need us? Is I have been told a couple different stats, so please don't quote me necessarily, but I've heard, especially in the toy and game industry, that a third to a half of new products are by outside designers.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I don't know 100% if that's true, but even if it's a quarter of the products, that's still a lot that come out. There are a lot of inventors, and these companies are seeing, 1,500, 2,000 new game ideas a year from meetings. So they're seeing a lot. But if you have something that really stands out or sticks out, it can make a huge difference to them. So now, as I say, that changing a theme doesn't necessarily matter always with these companies that already have a game already out. In the instance of the game I told you that I licensed by changing the theme 3 times, this was a completely new game, right? But we changed the theme so that when the people had their experience playing, they were immersed differently. So because they've never seen it before, changing the theme works.
Yes.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. I had a conversation, I think in 2018. I'm not sure how I managed to get through to him, but Andrew from InventRight, who I'm sure you know, I talked to him and I had an idea for a toy at the time. This was my early iteration into going into the world that you live in. And one of the things he said to me, which ties in with what you're saying, and I think on a broader sense, really can help us all as leaders of our lives and also of our careers, whatever our careers look like. And that what he said was, people want to enter a universe and they want to know what the rules of that universe are so that they can succeed within that universe. And if you think of any of the successful games that I'm sure you've loved to play over the years that you've created, I know the ones I've loved, you get into there and you know what is going to happen. You don't necessarily know who's going to win or who has the biggest pile of cash or, the tokens or whatever it may be.
Right.
But you enter that universe and there may be some surprises, but generally speaking, you feel safe, you feel contained within it. And that's part of the experience. And I think as leaders, and what I see happening a lot, and maybe you do as well in your industry, April, is because there's so many options now for how we can show up in the world, whether it's on social media or it's on a website or it's in person, people, I think, try to have too many themes or universes going on at once. And that ends up confusing folks. But at the same time, we're not one-dimensional, right? I just had this conversation with someone the other day. We're multidimensional. We bring so many gifts to the world. And in some ways, the algorithm forces us to be one thing. So, you as a leader, right? You were talking about, oh, people see me winning the award. People see me at the toy fair at the Java Center. People see me, on a podcast or a video cast like this, and they think, oh, they put you into that one little sphere, and you're like, wait a minute, there's so much more to me and what I do. And I guess my point here, tied to what you've been sharing, and also just for listeners, is it's okay to be multidimensional, but be aware that that's what you're doing. And when you're working on something specific, don't be afraid to refine and revise to make you and whatever it is you're doing better.
Right. I love that you said that, and you articulated it so well. And something I always tell my kids is whatever we're doing now helps lead to the next thing. Right. So I look back and I give them examples. I said, when I was a waitress in high school and college, that initially was a little out of my comfort zone, but I got to meet and talk with so many people, right? Which then helped me in college as a teacher. I got to stand up in front of a classroom and teach to kids. And then all of a sudden I'm teaching adults, right? Who are more, I don't know, they have more thoughts about how you're doing than the third graders do unnecessarily, and then I'm very into natural living and natural remedies and homeopathic stuff. And so I had started teaching some into that realm. And when I was doing that, I would just pop on a video and talk about a product I was using, or pop on a video and go live. Just, this is, what I'm using today, and this is how it helps me, and things like that. So all of those things get us one step closer to the next thing and get us brave enough. So now when I go to a trade show, I just walk up to someone and start chatting and, oh, you're the CEO? Fantastic. And, it doesn't faze me. And they're very important, and I'm glad to meet them. But at the same time, they're another person, and we can mutually benefit from each other. Yes. And I used to be, fearful of people higher up than me on the totem pole, so to speak. But what I've realized is we all have something to give, and we all have something to gain, and from every person we meet. And so when we have that mindset, we're not just thinking, oh, it's the CEO and maybe he doesn't want to talk to me. I have to think about, what can I bring to his team?
Right.
And because I have things I can bring to his team. And when we start having a mindset like that, as well as an abundance mindset, because I'm very huge about having an abundance mindset, it really can change our whole outlook and our frequency of what we're putting out into the world, and then also what we're getting back.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And you brought up abundance, and also the mindset that just because somebody has a specific title doesn't necessarily make them better, greater, more important than anybody else. And that whole win-win mindset of, hey, I have something that could really benefit your company, and you have the opportunity to help me get this idea out in a bigger way. Like, that's such an important piece to the puzzle. And then that brings me to another question that I'm sure is on people's minds. People might be thinking, but April, what if they steal my idea? I'm sure you get that all the time. That fear of, I have this great idea and I take it to a company. Are they going to then, I'm just, Mary Lou over here. I don't, I talk about that legitimate, but perhaps misguided fear that a lot of people have about sharing ideas.
Yes. Good question. So I will say a lot of big companies, medium to small, big companies will have NDAs that they ask you to sign, because they also are working internally on things. They want you to know that you could show them something and they literally could have a team working on a prototype very similar to yours right at the same time.
Really?
So they will often ask for us to sign NDAs. If a company doesn't ask for me to sign an NDA, I don't feel the need to ask them to sign one. And I'm not concerned about it, because a lot of times, okay, so people talk, relationships are important, and reputation is important.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any, or we'll say many, companies who want to sideline inventors, because they count on inventors, especially in this industry. So that's not important to me. today I received an email from a company that I presented to in New York, and I had just met them. And they had time. And so I sat down and showed them a product that I thought was a perfect fit for them. And then afterwards, I followed up with the video so they could share it with their team. Well, they asked if they could have a sample to review it with their team, which is totally normal.
Yes.
In the toy and game industry. And so I do that often. And they said, we're happy to sign an NDA if you would like. And I didn't even address the NDA. I said, happy to send you a sample. I get it in the mail this week. And to me, I don't think that they're out to get us. And if you keep your ideas so close to you and you don't show anyone, then nothing will ever happen to it with it. But I will say this, if you are looking to license your idea instead of manufacturing it and selling it yourself, do not go out and broadcast it and put it on social media and whatnot. I've seen the trends and people take trends and things they see online, right? And then create their own idea from that. Or maybe your idea will inspire something or spark something from other people. But you want to keep it confidential, because otherwise, why would the company license it if they know the whole world has access to it already? Why should they pay you money? So it's important for me to only show people privately in meetings, Zoom calls, or whatnot. They have, I have my name and my company on all the video, on all the information. And so if they pass it around their team, that information's on there. And so that's important to me. So I would say, don't hold on to it so tight that you don't go anywhere with it ever, but also don't go announcing it and showing it to the world. Do that privately.
Right. TMI, right?
Yeah.
Have some discretion, right? And again, that applies to all kinds of things, right? You don't want to just tell the whole world every sad thing that's happening in your life. Or I know there's a current trend right now for people under the guise of being vulnerable, right? Because vulnerability has become sexy from Brene Brown's work. And I love her work, the whole being brave. You even used that word earlier. You have to learn to be more brave, to pick up the phone, make the phone call, or put yourself out there in a bigger way. Visibility for all of us now is a skill you have to develop. You know, when I work with clients about just showing up online, to begin establishing their personal brand, it's amazing how many people feel this sense of, but isn't that bragging? I was raised not to brag about myself. I'm supposed to be humble, and humility is important. I'm not discounting that at all. But if you want the world to know about you and the value that you bring, whether you're an inventor like yourself or you're looking for your next role, you've got to be developing your thought leadership around your passion, right? Which is what you're doing with documenting my life as an inventor. I think that's so brilliant that you're willing to take us inside your day-to-day, so to speak, and also to be vulnerable about things that didn't work out. And also perhaps, it's an interesting tension between dreaming really big about, I have this great idea, and then the practicality of the process, that it's not all going to be the confetti. It's not all going to be the toy show. And I'd like, you were telling me in the pre-chat that you love trade shows because of the energy and everything. Some people see trade shows as just this enormous energy sucking kind of event. But again, for listeners who might have ideas for products, or are looking just to build a network, talk about, how did you get to the trade show, first of all, in New York at the Javits Center, which is like one of the biggest in the world? And what do you recommend for people who are thinking about going to one? What should they be thinking about?
Yes. So every trade show is different, I will say. And usually trade shows have their websites that are going to tell you who's going to be exhibiting, and then the credentials or criteria you have to meet to go. Sometimes they're open to public and anyone can go to them. And then sometimes you have to meet certain standards or stipulations, if you will. So not everyone could go to New York. You had to, have some, you had to show that you had a business, and you had to show that you had a meeting, and you have to belong to a trade industry group. And so there was a couple things, but it wasn't crazy difficult to get in. But so look and see what your product is and see what trade shows are available, to you for your industry that you're inventing in or that you have an idea in, right? And then I think it's really important to have your product with you if it is small enough, because what can happen is you could see a booth and talk to someone and realize they have a great product line and your product would fit perfectly in where they have a gap or a hole, and the people are open to it. And so I love to have, a tablet or a computer where I've got a video that they could see, and then you're not pulling it out. But then if they're interested, you can pull it out. And if you're okay with it, depends, on how busy the space is. Everyone has to, decide on their own and then show them right then and there. But it's also great to collect cards, meet people and say, let's set up a Zoom after. I know you're super busy because, they're trying to meet with buyers and make sales. And so let's connect in a week and we'll set up a Zoom call. So I have several cards and a list of people I need to email to set up Zoom calls with that I didn't pitch to at the show. So it's great for, meeting people in person, for identifying companies that your product will fit well in. And then doing some more research on those companies and then collecting the business cards, because sometimes it is hard to get to the right person on the phone or from the website or from LinkedIn even. I was so excited to get connected and get cards and speak to people physically that I've been trying to get a hold of for several months with a few companies. And so that was huge for me. Even though I've been in the industry so long, there's always companies that are, rising up and getting larger and starting to open their doors to outside inventors. So it's fantastic to see that and go there, meet in person, see products, see people, and just make that initial relationship connection, and then hopefully set up, meeting for later. But even if you don't have something for that company at that time, but you could say, I love what they're doing, or I've got an idea, but it's not ready yet. I'll say that, I'll say, I love what you guys are doing. I have a game that I'm working on right now that also uses manipulatives. I'd love to be able to show you once it's ready. Can I get your card? Things like that. People I find are typically very, very open. There were a couple people, yes, that will say, no, sorry, we don't work with outside inventors. And okay, thank you for your time, and move on. Right.
That's okay.
Yes.
Right. It's perfect. In fact, you're almost glad because you're getting so many other places who are like, oh yeah, we're open. So the whole process of following up, which you just described, is critical. I mean, you obviously are professional and do follow up. I know statistically, follow up is where most people stop. They meet, and it could be any kind of event, a networking event, a trade show, some kind of, I don't know, a holiday open house, right? And you meet some great people, and then you drop the ball. But the key, again, team, I hope you're hearing this. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're pursuing, whether it's an invention like what April does, or you're looking for a new role, or maybe you're writing a book and you want to get it into bookstores. You have to find people and opportunities in real life, because like you described, LinkedIn is great, but it's limited. People, especially people who are in important roles, are going to be hit from all directions by a lot of people. And sometimes those folks just turn it off. You can't even get to them. But a real, in real life kind of event, like you just experienced, it deepens the relationship, or it begins one. Then it's up to you to keep the relationship going. And thank you for really describing that process and how important it is, because, it's not going to happen otherwise.
Right. And I think another thing to just note is you may have to follow up several times before they even respond to you. So don't think, oh, they told me to follow up or reach out, and I did once and they didn't respond back, so they must not want to meet with me again. I will tell you, remember, these people are important and they have many roles. And we are not usually the very top item on their
Really? Why not?
I don't know. We should be, though, right?
We should be.
So it may take several times. And if they told you and gave you their blessing to reach out, and it's not unsolicited, then keep reaching out. Maybe it's every 2 weeks for a little bit. Maybe it's then becomes once a month. I tell you, I licensed something after the 11th email, they finally responded.
Wow, 11 emails.
They initially liked it and said, "Oh, we're interested. Can you send the video so we can review it with your team?" And I think I even took a month off in between some of those 11 emails. And then finally one day I get an email, "This is great. We'd love to license it." And I'm thinking, okay, let's do it. But I hope we have better communication moving forward. I don't know. But so all this to say is that not receiving an answer or not receiving a reply is not a no. A no
Yes.
is a no. If you don't hear back, then give it some time, reach out again. But I would say do not be one of those people that say, "I've emailed you 15 times and you haven't responded back. Would you like this whatever offer, or would you like to meet with me?" Don't remind them how many times you've emailed them, because I feel like it's just rude.
It is. It's almost shaming.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to open that email. Like, I'm not wanting you now.
That doesn't make you feel good. You want the person to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good point. So for people who'd like to, you talked about, you have a YouTube channel, you're on LinkedIn. Do you have a website, April, where you hang out or people can learn more about you?
Yes, I have a website that has all of my info, from products to, if you'd like me to speak or teach, or like all the articles I've written. I do write a monthly column for Inventors Digest as well, called Meant to Invent.
Nice. Okay.
And my YouTube channel's on there, and other magazine articles or things I've, been in somehow.
Right.
Are in there, because the site is really kind of a get to know April site, but also it's a resource for new inventors as well, because there's a lot of things and places that they can go to learn.
And what is the URL for that?
Oh, yeah. So it is www.4ascreations.com, and it's the digit 4.
Okay.
Then the letters ASCREATIONS.com. I should have thought that through, because it's hard to say. but my company is 4A's Creations. All my children have their names start with the letter A.
Got it.
They have inspired me, and so that's how 4A's Creations came to be.
I love that. I love the connection.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as we come to the end of this amazing conversation, I've learned some new things and thought differently about some things. What are 2 to 3 key tips that you can leave us all with about pursuing what you love and becoming a leader in the space? And then you could also throw in just another tip around being an idea person, a what if person, a creative person.
Yes. So I think the number one important thing that I wanted to touch on quickly is personal growth and development is key and huge to not only product development, what I do, but if you are listening to anything, whatever business you're going to do, whatever new job you're looking for, personal growth and development is key. I am not the same person I was when I started with my first idea. I had to grow. And then this takes us into these other ideas here, right? You have to be open to growing and learning from other people. And then, of course, a belief mindset, because it is very hard, I personally feel, to succeed if you are down all the time and you don't believe in yourself. And so if you are open to learn and open to grow personally, not just your business, because I will tell you, the more I put in my time on myself to grow personally, my business grows. I do better. I sign more deals when I am putting time into me and my personal growth development, not just my product development. And I would assume or think that would be like any business person. The more you're working on yourself and growing, whether it's communication skills or ideation, or, me like learning how to take time apart and practice meditation and calmness, or learning how to believe in yourself, which may start with simple I am statements and writing them 10 times a day. of what you are so that you can work on believing in yourself. So there's so many things we can do as people to develop ourselves, which I think then reflects in all aspects of life.
Wow. I can't think of a better way to finish this conversation today than that, April. Thank you so much for just being you and really showing up fully yourself and still being willing to grow and learn and share with all of us here at the Play Your Position podcast what it means to be an inventor and also just a person on the planet at this time in history. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure being a guest today. And I look forward to more of your podcasts. It's a great one. I've listened to some amazing guests. So keep on doing what you're doing. It's making a difference.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.